How do you know if you're in a good relationship or if your relationship is enough?
Carla, I believe the answer to that is, if you feel fulfilled, if you feel that within that relationship you are still your own person, which means that you're able to follow some of your own pursuits, you're still growing yourself, and that means achieving things that you want to achieve. You'll have mutual friends and you'll have separate friends, and that there isn't an ongoing degree of jealousy about that two people can come together and sufficiently secure to handle that and understand that there is a coming together and there is an individuality, and that relationship is meant for one to support the other, push and pull when it's needed. I think in essence, if you're coming home at night to your partner and you want to come home, you're driving home from your work day and you're looking forward to getting home. And whatever happens when you get home, you still want to be there and you still want to solve, whether it's an issue or whether it's a celebration or whatever it is. And that you know in your heart that you still want to be with that person. That if that person wasn't there, your life would have a sadness that you don't really want to have without that person. If those elements are there, truly and honestly there, your relationship's enough at that point in time. It doesn't mean that that's where that relationship should end. It means it's enough at that point in time, but you can keep growing it and growing it and growing it.
Because we're in a time of the world where everyone seems to be either under emotional or financial or spiritual strain, how do you, when you feel like you're in survival mode, how do you still get excited about coming home when there's so much stress and worry?
Well, to understand and to have a belief that survival mode is not going to be forever. It's going to end. It might be in a few weeks, it might be in a few months, whatever, but it's going to end. And within that difficult period of time, that you can come together as a couple and that you can find moments of joy within that period of time, and you can. And if there's children involved as well, to just enjoy and involve the children in moments of fun and moments of play and moments of joy and moments of coming together as a family in the merest of budgets that you might have, and to understand that survival is not always going to be. To have the faith in your greater spirit, to have the faith within yourself that there's going to be a different time come, and that I've got what it takes to get through this period, this difficult period of time, and that there is a growing within that as well. And to have that faith and to pass that faith to your children is really, really important. This is temporary. There's better times coming.
Do you think we have unfair expectations on what a relationship is meant to be?
Yeah, we certainly do. I think the majority of people go into a relationship really not understanding what a relationship is at all. You know, there's a lot of younger people going into relationships, and it's about a big wedding, then a house, then having an immediacy within the house, the things that I want immediately, and then comes the children, and without a real expectation of what comes with all of that. A couple should go out together for 3 months, just exploring, just having fun, just getting to know one another before you even decide, is this a person that I might even consider being in a relationship with? And in the 4th month, we'll have a chat and we'll see if we want to take it forward into a relationship. Going forward into a relationship before a couple partners into living together or getting married or whatever, there are so many, many issues to consider. And that is, truly what does one expect from the other? If you're going to have children, how is the children going to be reared? What kind of education is expected? How is one going to support the other? What kind of culture comes from both families brought into the rearing of children and into the partnership between each other? And what's the plan that both partners have for each other, for their own growth for the next sort of 2 or 3 years. All of these issues coming together to plan before moving into a relationship. And the honesty about having children. You know, in my clinic room, when some people come for relationship counselling, or one partner or the other might come for issues in the marriage, it's really astounding how often one partner will say, but I didn't want children in the first place, you know. And this is very often men. It's men more often than women, where men are truly not wanting children, but they're knowing that the partner does, and they just go along with it. And there builds up a lot of resentment within the relationship because that discussion never took place before the relationship. And it's incredibly selfish, and it's incredibly cruel to the children that are born of that relationship when one partner is honestly saying, I don't want this child, but I'll just go along with pretending that I do, and not ever, you know, sometimes never fully committed to that child. So these are really, really serious issues for a couple to discuss before entering into any kind of serious commitment of coming together as a de facto relationship, as marriage or whatever, where they're eventually going to think about having a family together. And if one partner says, I simply don't want children, no, the answer is no. And the other person says, well, I do. Very often then I will see examples then of when they come together, and in this circumstances it's nearly always the woman says, well, I'll change his mind. You know, once we get into this relationship and it's all wonderful, of course he'll want children and I'll help him change his mind. And often they don't. And then a whole lot of resentment and anger and bitterness grows. Or the woman says, well, I'll trick him into getting pregnant anyway, and he'll be okay once the baby arrives. That is tantamount to absolute and utter disaster. You know, that man will always be suspicious. He'll be angry. He will not have a full commitment to that child, and he's lost trust with his partner. But this is happening so often, so very, very often I see this.
Would they be not wanting children in that moment because of fear, but then may end up wanting them?
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I'm just getting a feeling here that it's around about 40% of men who truly are not committed to having a child in a relationship. Now that might change with counselling or talking with someone who helps. Of course, if a man, or indeed a woman at times, comes from a childhood of abuse or really bad experiences, and they hold a belief, I'm not going to bring a child into the world to suffer what I suffered. That, of course, is a belief system that's flawed, and counselling can help change that for a man or a woman in circumstances, to understand that because it happened to them doesn't mean that it's going to happen to children of theirs. So that, you know, that's just counselling around those kind of flawed belief systems.
So have you got any advice or some standard questions, so to speak, that if you're in a relationship and thinking about having children and your partner says, I don't think I want them, some questions to work out if it's the truth or if it is fear?
You have to have the conversation. And if it's a man, ask the man why he doesn't want to have children. He will give you the answer, you know, close to the truth. If there are some fallacies in that answer, if there are some flaws, perhaps go to counselling. Ask if he's willing to go to counselling to examine what his belief systems are, see if they can be changed, if they are flawed systems. If that man is adamant, no, I do not want children, and the woman does want children, you know, that relationship's going to be in trouble from the start. It's going to be in trouble. Unless that woman is able to say, we can build a love, we can concentrate on ourselves, and we can build a love within this relationship, and I can give up my desire to have a child. Perhaps I can fulfill that desire through working with children or sharing with nieces, nephews, something like this. But if a woman knows in her heart that that's not so, that her desire is to have a child, and she pretends that it's okay to satisfy the man, the relationship is doomed. It's absolutely doomed. Such a relationship can only go ahead successfully if that woman can come to peace with the fact, no, I want this man more, I want this relationship more, I want us to be together more than I want the children, and I can give up that wish.
Speaking of children and prioritising your relationship or your partner, when you have a full life and you need to love and care for your children, how do you strike that balance?
How do you prioritise? The priority is always to oneself first of all. Now, some people might think, wow, did she really say that? Is that very, very selfish? But no, let me explain that. If you, as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, is not looking after yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, whatever, number one, you cannot grow. You are not going to be happy. You're probably not going to be healthy. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be angry. And you're going to give up your independent growth. That's going to factor into every member of your family. Number one is a growth and a nurturing of oneself. Number two, when there's children, is always to the children. Always. Children come number two, and number three come the two partners. It's quite clear, it's quite specific. That's how it has to be. If you look after yourself, if you look after the needs of the children, and you bring the children up as happy as you can within whatever their journey is and what's meant for them, and you're satisfied and fulfilled of what you're doing for your child, and the male partner's happy and fulfilled of what they're doing for the child, then there's going to be a peace between the two partners that is going to bring the two partners stronger together with a purpose, and that purpose is to support and nurture their children. They share a fulfillment in that. They share a joy in that. They share a team and equality in that, and that's a beautiful movement to go forward with.
Where's the balance in that though? When is it that you're possibly putting too much focus only on the children and then leaving your partner high and dry?
When a partner says to you, there's a problem here, or if the partner is not sufficiently honest to say that to you, that you can actually sense that. And most people can sense that, but choose to do nothing about it. If a woman is dedicating herself completely to the children and ignoring the husband or the partner in whatever form that it is, well, that is selfishness. That is terrible selfishness. And I would say that that woman is actually using that man. She's using that man to provide her with those children and to help her support those children, but she's not giving anything back to that man. She's not putting anything very much back into that relationship. So there's a selfishness, there's a self-centeredness, and there's a using of that man. I see that in an awful lot of relationships. But if the man is not sufficiently honest to say, hey, stop, I'm being left out here, and I'm not getting very much from you, if that can happen, and the woman can listen and sit down, have a conversation, work out and get onto a page of equality, then of course that can grow forward. If the woman ignores, and if the woman doesn't change or try to change, everything else goes into the children. Well, again, you've got a broken relationship. You've got a broken relationship. And there's a woman who wants to put all of the time into the children, or a man into the children and not into the partner. There are some emotional issues happening there as well. So those have to be explored and some answers found for that.
So if you're in a relationship, what are the base expectations? If we know that we can have too higher expectation in some, what's the bare minimum? What is a relationship?
A relationship is two people coming together to help each other grow. And that's to grow spiritually, to grow emotionally, to grow professionally, and whatever it is you do for a job, that your partner will help support that and will do whatever they can to encourage you within that. It's a support and a nurturing along the way. A relationship is a situation where you want to give up part of yourself to help another person, to assist another person. To me, that's very, very clear and very, very true, the essence of a relationship. I believe if you're in a relationship and you feel you don't want to do that, I don't want to give you that, I don't want to give you that time, I can't be bothered doing that for you, why can't you do that for yourself? I just don't wish to do that. That's not a relationship. That's what we call a coupling. And a coupling is a lovely word because we talk about, two trains come together at the railway station and they couple together one carriage to the next. And Spirit says 92% of so-called relationships that we think are relationships are couplings. And couplings simply are two people come together, they share a house, they share a friendship, they might share some values, they actually might not. They share some care for each other. They're like brother and sister sharing a house. Spirit would say 92% of relationships are that there is just that coming together as a couple, but not putting in the work into a relationship. Relationships are hard. And the first thing that we need to say to young people going into a relationship is, it's going to be difficult. There's going to be really tough times and there's going to be really good times. There's going to be times when you're not happy and you need to come together with your partner to work through those bad times and to help support each other. And you're going to have to give up a lot. You can imagine two young people come together, let's say they're mid-20s or whatever, they want to get married, and each has got their own life. They've been trundling along, doing whatever it is, have both got professions, we're going to get married now. Well, both is going to have to give up a substantial bit of what they did before that marriage. They're going to have to change. They're now living with someone. They're now married to someone. They've now got a commitment to someone. They've now made a promise to help support that person, to help nurture that person. Maybe, for instance, one partner plays football every weekend and is used to going out with his mates to the pub or whatever every Friday night and Saturday night. Well, some of that's now going to be given up. And it's certainly going to be given up when children come along, because mum is going to want support with the children and the children's going to want support from dad at the weekends. But so many so-called relationships, which, as I say, are really couplings, and this is more often with the man. I find this much more often with the man. The man does not hold a belief that life should change. They still want to be a boy within a man's contract. And coming together in this marriage, and she's asking me to give up golf to only play 2 Saturdays in the month. That's not fair. I work hard all week, and I help provide this, that, and the other, and that's not fair. I need that time. That's the boy's time. Well, this is the start of a relationship is going to fail. It's a coupling. It's not a relationship. The couple needs to work out what has to be given up by each to now put into the cup of the relationship. And that needs to all be worked out long before engagements, marriages, children take place. And it's not, something as simple as I see coming up a lot is what school a child's going to go to. Where very often the dad's saying, I went to that school, so I want my son to go to that school. And it's a school that doesn't suit the child at all. And there's been no discussion before a child is born as to what both agree on an education. And that, of course, should be that when the child's born and you know who the child is and what they are, you pick a school that's suitable to the child.
So if 92% of relationships are coupling. 8% are in relationships. How do we get there? But also the way you defined what relationships is sounds the same definition as love. So does that mean that love is really low? True love?
Of course it is. Of course it is. We only get back what we give out. Then we will start to understand that we will be kinder to each other, that we actually have more fulfillment in doing that because we're getting a good feeling back from the other person, that we walk away and say, gee, that was satisfying, and we want to do that again. That is building love. And what is love? Love is sharing a feeling with another with a little expectation of getting something back, an unconditional feeling that I want to do this because I'm overcome with the feeling I want to do this, I want to give this, I just feel that I need to share. We need to start sharing to feel that.
This is why it's so important for us all to nurture and improve our relationships, because if we have a healthy relationship or a relationship and not coupling, that means we're actually striving for our purpose. We're being more loving, we're being more kind.
Yes, absolutely. I've had a failed marriage. When I look back on that marriage, I made a host of mistakes. In my youth, I got married at 26. I was married to a man that I would say I wanted to marry at that point in time. I believed him to be a good man that I had a love for, and I believe I did have a love for. But we made a lot of mistakes within that marriage. Looking back a long time now, back to then, on my part, a lot of it was selfishness too. I was very dedicated to a career. It's fair to say there was a difference in evolution too. So what I wanted from life and from my future was not what he wanted. So that marriage came to an end. But I look back on that time. It wasn't an easy time. There was a lot of issues came out of it, but I learned a lot. And it makes you very cautious about moving into a second one, but it makes you realize what you need in a relationship and to look for that. And, you know, in the marriage that I'm in now, which has been for a long time, not far off 40 years, you know, that was a relationship that came together very, very quickly, very quickly. It was meeting Ian, my husband, and a few months later living together and putting together 3 children. But that was just simply a knowledge of knowing I have to be here. This is a place I have to be. I made that decision and it was the right decision.
Selfishness has come up a bit in this conversation. Can you explain where the line between looking after yourself and putting yourself as number one and where that line is where it slips into selfishness?
It's a difficult one, and it's one you always have to check yourself on. If you feel that you're always giving up, you know, you're giving up A, you're giving up B, you're giving up C, and you're not filling the cup for you, you have to say at that point in time, hey, I'm not getting anything back here for me. So I'm going to take it because I need it for my growth. But if you can honestly sit down and say, when I do this for me, which is go to the gym, go for a walk, go and swim, go out with friends for a night or whatever, if you can honestly say, I come back from that a much better person, and my tolerance is more, my desire to give is more, then you know that you have that feeling of, I'm still giving a lot, but I'm needing just this bit for me in order for me to give that. It's an honesty with yourself. Am I taking more than I'm being given, or am I taking more than what's fair? You know, if you've got a friend or you've got a parent or you've got someone who can point that out to you in a relationship, you know, if you've got a mum or if you've got a dad who can say to you, You're being quite selfish here. You know, that helps if you can listen.
You obviously found the one.
Yeah.
Does everybody have a one?
Everyone has a one. And that's different from saying everyone has a great love. A big, big love in a lifetime. If you've earned it and you're meant to have a big, big love in a lifetime, you will have it. If you haven't earned it through your lifetimes to the one that you're currently in, you can have a love, but the love will be equivalent to your evolutionary growth. If your evolutionary growth is midline, you couldn't sustain a great love that's at a higher evolution to you. You wouldn't understand it. You couldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't be able to give up of yourself in the way that you need to meet that great love. So it's really match to match.
So how do you know what your evolution, or if you're supposed to be searching for a big love, or that this one will do?
People don't get to know their evolution by oneself. So generally you would go to a medium to find out where your evolution is. And evolution, for those people who may not know what the heck we're talking about, evolution is the number of lives that we have lived and what we have learned in those lives, and that we have learned in each life what we were meant to learn, and that has catapulted us to the next life, which is at a higher level. So we keep on learning. We haven't fallen back for half of those lives. That is what evolution is measured with, together with honesty. Honesty is the number one test of the evolution of a person, how honest a person can be. So how do you know if you've met the right love? If you check off all the things that I've said earlier, and at least trying to go through that process of taking it slow and saying to yourself, I want a person to be in my life that I can share, that I can learn about love, that I can help that person to grow and they can help me to grow. And if we decide to have a family, we can share that family together and at the same time grow each other. If you've found someone who you believe you can do that with, then you go ahead and take the risk and jump in. But nothing's guaranteed. There's no guarantees how a relationship is going to turn out. A person has to put in the work to say, I'm going to do my utmost to make this work. And you know, things can happen in a relationship. There can be a very good relationship and something happens. One gets seriously ill, or there's a child in the relationship and they've died, they've been killed on the road or whatever. And traumas and tragedies happen, and a good relationship can be torn apart through grief, through trauma, through such incidents as that. You're not going to know that on the day that you stand up at the altar and get married. You're not going to know that. That's going to come out of the blue as someone's karma. But at least if you can stand at the altar and say, if bad things happen in this relationship, I hold a belief today that I want this person enough to support them through it, and I believe sufficiently that they want me enough to support me through it. Then of course you have to take the risk, you have to take the chance.
And if, using that example, if everyone's supposed to have one, and if something unfortunate happens and then that just fizzles away, or you have one but the other person's not ready, from a spiritual perspective, do they give you another one, or is that game over?
Yes, they do. They give you another one. It may not be, you know, as true a love as what you once had. And this brings us to older people my age, who've been together for years and years in a relationship, and the partner dies, and it may have been a great love. To find that great love again is going to be impossible. And older people sometimes will make a decision to just be together with someone because they're lonely, and it's friendship and it's a companionship, and they just want to share the rest of their life together. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It will never be. And they're not looking for that great love again because they're not going to get it. But as long as they're honest in saying, you know, I'd like you in my life for these reasons. And older people are generally very well aware. Very well aware. And the older people that I deal with, they have a lot of other issues to consider often. They've got property, they've got children, they're concerned about wills, they're concerned about passing on to children. So they have these issues that they often just decide to be with another partner, but they have to some degree separate lives as well. And they can find a lot of happiness in that. But it's not another great love.
If 92% are in couples and not in relationships, is there hope for it to improve?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. There's hope only if they go to a counsellor and they can be honest, and the counsellor can show them either where they're going wrong or what it is they're not doing. And they both have a desire to want to be in a relationship, and they both have a desire to be with each other. That is the ultimate question. The ultimate question is, do you want to be with this man for the rest of your life as you can see it today? If the answer is yes, there's a hope both ways. If there's a hesitancy at all, chances of a relationship are less, can change, but it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of communication, a lot of understanding from each other. One of the things that causes a lot of problems in relationships, men have certain traits, women have certain traits, they're not the same. We've been programmed to be different. But unfortunately, culture has taught men to hold a belief that they're superior and that they generally know more than a woman. This causes more issues in relationships than perhaps any other thing. If I could say one thing to men today, is to start to listen to the woman in your life, start to listen more, start to listen to what she's actually saying, without the need to defend, without the need to argue that you know more, but to actually hear what she's saying, go away and think about it, come together again and have a joint plan. So many things would change if men could learn that.
What are the early warning signs that your relationship or coupling is well and truly broken and worth exiting? How do you really know?
How do you really know? Well, when you're feeling unhappy is the first one. When you're feeling angry, when you're feeling that you're not heard, you're not seen, they don't care about you, and you can really look at your partner and say, well, he or she just doesn't care because I've asked them for this 2 times or 3 times and they've said yes, they will give it to me, but nothing has changed. They've gone away and they've carried on in the way they always have done, okay? That partner is saying to you at that point in time, I don't care. I don't want to change. My advice is that that's the time to walk, or to start preparing to walk, to start to say, I don't want to be in this relationship. He or she is not giving to me what I need, and they're not going to. They've indicated they're not going to. It's time to say, I need to look after me. I need to grow me to be a better person. I need to grow me to be a loving person. Because if you stay in that relationship from that point on, all you're going to get is angry. You're going to get nasty. When anger's in, love is out, always. When love goes out the window and you're angry, then anger grows to bitterness, it's all done. And 2 spirits are damaged, and perhaps damaged forever.
Can a coupling or a relationship come back after infidelity?
It can. It can, but very, very rarely in my experience. Firstly, a couple has to sit down and be completely and totally honest as to why it's happened. It's happened for a reason, either side, man or woman. It's happened because there's not fulfillment in the relationship they're in, there's not sexual fulfillment in the relationship they're in, there's some reason happening. Or one of the partners simply think that it's their right to do that. Why should I not do that if I want to? Well, then you're back to selfishness, you're back to no equality, to no integration, so you've got a major problem there. But if the reason why has been put on the counter, and each person can accept it, each person can accept what it is they've done that is not fair and respectful to the other person, and at that point in time, the one who has been betrayed is able to say, I will never mention this again from today. It's done and it's finished, and I'm making a choice to trust you from today. If a person can do that, the relationship can repair, but there are very, very, very few who will do that. In the majority of instances that I know, they'll decide to stay together for the wrong reasons. If it's the woman, she'll often stay together because the husband is the support. She's got the house, she's got the children, she's got the income, she may not be working, whatever. And the excuse will always be, I have to stay for the sake of the children. Well, you know, most of the time that is an excuse, most of the time. There are some genuine circumstances, but most of the time that's not a real reason. Having made the choice to stay together, she then sets out to punish. And there's a constant punishment. The relationship's done. The relationship is done from the moment that infidelity took place. It can only go forward if the woman is saying to the man, I'm sorry for what I didn't give you that caused you to believe that you needed to do this, and I'll fix that going forward because I want to be with you. The loss of you as a person is completely devastating for me to ponder. That has to be. If that is not there, forget it.
How do you rebuild trust in a relationship?
You have to decide that you want to. I want to be with this person. In order to be with this person, we have to have a clean slate. I have to place my trust. Of course, it will go slowly. And of course, people will check and double check. That's natural and normal to some degree. But that must get less as the other person proves they are trustworthy.
In a relationship, when people say, oh, I trust him, or I need to rebuild trust.
Yeah, I would say that trust is saying, he respects me sufficiently to hold my good name, to not put me down to other people, to understand that I have got feelings that he wouldn't trash if I heard he was speaking poorly of me. That would hurt anyone in a relationship either way. And to trust that when you need help, that person's willing to give you help. And to trust that that person has got your best interests at heart. Whatever decision they make in respect of their life with you, it will be with your best interest at heart. And that might mean that what they have to say to you hurts you. That means they might have to be honest with you. And that means they might have to say to you, if you are unable to change A, B, and C, I'm unable to remain in this relationship because it's hurting me. It's not working for me. That honest conversation has to come. That is trust, that person is giving it in truth and with respect to you. If the other person can't accept that as a trust, there's major issues.
So what do you think are let's say the 5 main reasons that relationships break down?
It was never a relationship in the first place, would be number 1. Selfishness. One person is not willing to give up enough. Understanding that when children come along, the woman's going to change and the man is going to change. Understanding you've got a different wife or partner once she becomes a mum. And for a man to ponder that, to realize that, to talk about it, and to understand that life has moved on in a different way. Very often men get stuck that they've still got the bride that they married at the altar 10 years later, when that woman's needs will change completely, but the man doesn't realize it. And often the woman doesn't tell him either, and doesn't say, the things that I wanted last year and the year before, I no longer feels important now. We've got little Johnny here now, and the things that are important to me now is this. And that's vice versa, man to woman. And further on to that, a lack of care for each other, where there's a lack of care, a lack of respect, and a bunch of hurts building up. Anger will start, abuse will start, verbal or whatever, resentment will start, love is out. The moment anger is in, love is out. The relationship is falling apart. And of course the final one is when one or the other looks at someone else and says, I want you more than I want what I've got right here, and I'm going. And that's when all of those things that we've talked about have gone on for a period of time, never been addressed, neither has been honest, and one person says, I'm out because I've met something that's making me feel really good.
Can you talk to that a bit, feeling unappreciated and unsupported? What's the importance of those, and what does that actually mean?
Let's take a woman who is at home with 2 children and she's not working. She might have been a career woman, but she's now got 2 children and she's at home with those 2 children. And the partner goes to work and does his job and whatever, and comes home, and he comes home and he goes to his football match, or he goes to his cricket, or he goes to whatever, he goes to the gym, whatever, etc., etc., etc. And he comes home, he has his dinner, he sits down, he watches television, and he goes to bed. Just on that one day is a complete lack of appreciation. Why? Because he's come home, here's the things that I want to do, here's the things that I need to do, and so I'm off to do them. Thank you very much, see you later for dinner. Whereas what's needed is that man comes in and says, I appreciate what you've done with the children all day. It's difficult to be with 2 young children all day. What can I do right now to help you? I'd like to go to football tonight. I'm due to go in an hour's time, but what is it I can give you between then and then? Would you like to just go and sit down and have a cup of tea, do whatever, have your shower, do whatever, and I'll have the children now until I come back. And I'm going to be an hour and a half, whatever it is. When I come back, I'll help you with whatever else you need to help. It is the appreciation of the role that mother has done during the day, and equally the appreciation from the woman of the role that man has done during the day. And it doesn't matter whether it's a heterosexual or a homosexual relationship, it's partner to partner. It is respecting each other's role. It is willing to assist in each other's role. And it's walking into the house at the end of the day saying, I understand your day might have been tough. If it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes to talk about it, and tell me, share with me. But it has to be vice versa. It has to be one to the other. That's an appreciation. an appreciation of what your partner's doing, what they're going through, what they're having to deal with in any one day. Sometimes needs only 5 minutes to do that.
Sometimes I talk to clients about independence and they hear that word and they automatically think that that means that they won't have love, and they think independence and love can't live side by side or with each other. Can you speak a bit to that?
Oh, absolutely they can, absolutely. The fundamental understanding has to come about that we're two equal people. That partner A has got their spiritual journey and partner B has got their spiritual journey, and that A and B has made a free will decision to come together to say, I'll help you meet that journey and I'll help you meet that journey. That means right there has to be an independence of growing that. Let's say, for instance, one person is a doctor, one person is a dentist. They're going to come together on a knowledge of health. They're going to come together on a knowledge of medical systems. But one is going to grow oneself through dentistry, which has got nothing to do with being a doctor. Yeah, and they will pursue their interest through that, and the other one will pursue maybe through gastrointestinal or whatever. But they'll come together only for a short period of time professionally, and they'll make a decision to support each other professionally. They'll have different friends, they'll have different interests in friends, they'll have different things that they want to attend professionally. Some they'll do individually, some they'll come together for. And it's an understanding and an agreement of where do we come together, where do we separate? And not just grabbing it and saying, well, I'm taking it. It's having that conversation with your partner saying, this is what I need to do for me on this. Are you okay with this? This is going to happen for this period of time. Now what do you need to do? And when do you need the help from me to support you? It's keeping that conversation going.
You're a very evolved woman. You're a spiritual teacher. You've had a myriad of different careers. You've had a failed relationship and a very successful relationship. You're a mother and have grandchildren and a teacher. If there was one piece of advice that you could give on relationships, because you're so passionate about wanting people to have successful relationships, is there one piece of wisdom that you would leave people with?
Yeah, lead with your heart. Do what your heart tells you, because really that's the information from your spirit. Really. That's what I did. Here in this current relationship, you know, I was in a relationship, I had a small child, it had failed. And it had badly failed at that point in time, and had failed for probably the previous 3 to 4 years. Just for circumstances, it hadn't parted. If I had said, when I met Ian, I can't do it for the sake of my child. I can't do it for the sake of my house. I don't want to give up my house. I can't do it because it will hurt my partner. I can't do it for this reason, for that reason, for other. My partner was already hurting because he was in a failed relationship. I was already hurting because I was in a failed relationship. So, you know, that's a nonsense thinking. I went with my heart. I said, I need to do this.
So love can conquer all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it can. It can.